do me a favor, please, and send Cindy the meeting link? I think she's having some trouble finding it. Thank you. So it is 6:02. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order as we have a quorum. So we will go through roll call. After I call your name, please introduce yourself and your function. Kate.
Kate Kaczynski.
Lori.
Lori Viets, parent rep.
Mira.
Mira Weber, principal.
Marilyn. Can you hear me, Marilyn? Hold on.
Marilyn Rosario Caro, staff rep.
Sarah.
Sarah Ogato, parent rep.
Nick.
Nick Hall, teacher rep.
Sandra.
Sandra Richmond, community rep.
Kirsten.
Kirsten Clay, parent rep.
Emily.
Emily Holberg, teacher rep.
And did Cindy make it in yet? No? Okay, thank you.
I emailed her the link.
Okay, thank you, Mira. Okay, we do have, like I said, we do have a quorum, so we will proceed. Next,
Hey.
I'm sorry.
Also, Mac Laboon, community rep.
Okay.
Very hurtful.
Charge my head, not my heart. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is approval of the agenda. Are there any motions?
This is Sarah Ogato. I'll motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second? Nick?
Second.
Oh, okay, Mac, okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, it has been moved that we approve the agenda as provided prior to the meeting and seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand. Them raised, please. Are you able to see the count, Mira or Sandra?
Emily, is your hand up? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, it looks unanimous.
Unanimous.
Can you just keep it up forever? Okay, no, I'm sorry, I was joking. Yeah, unanimous.
Thank you both. Okay, the next item is approval of the minutes. We will be we will be voting on the minutes for the special meeting in March. We will move the review and approval of the regular March meeting minutes to the May meeting. Is there a motion?
I motion to approve the minutes of the special March meeting.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, one point of discussion. Sandra, did you get my email regarding the?
Yeah, we can approve it with that clause that I'll add Kate to the roll call.
Okay, great. So earlier today, I think it was, I noticed that there was one correction needed to the minutes, and that was just to add Kate to the attendance as she joined after the roll call. Her votes were reflected later in the minutes, but her name just wasn't there in attendance. And so I did send that to Emily, and she has updated that. And so I'm going to ask the motion be amended that the special meeting minutes be approved with that correction to add Kate to the attendance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
I just want to clarify. I didn't take I took meeting minutes, but I think that was in February. So I just didn't want to be on the hook for something I wasn't aware of.
No, these
Okay.
are not by Sandra.
Okay, that's what I thought.
You got
Okay, I was like, I think I got you mine. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, we will vote on the, oh, thank you, Mira. We will vote on the motion to approve the minutes with the requested correction. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, is that a full count? Do we have any opposed? Any abstaining?
Sarah Ghetto is up.
I abstain. I wasn't present.
Have the count, Sandra?
Yes, so 9 yeses, 0 no's, 1 abstention.
Let's see, I thought we had 11 present.
I'm trying to figure that out. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, 10, right?
There's 12 of us.
1, 2.
Cindy's here now?
Yeah, Cindy's here. There's 12 of us, so there'd be 11 yeses and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Were you able to visualize that, Mira, with the
Yeah.
vote? Oh, okay, great. And we don't need to vote, and we don't need to raise our hands again. Okay, thank you. Okay, motion carries. The next item on the agenda, the principal report. Yeah, I did notice in your principal report that you had some discussion of the CIWP, you know, just blurb, but I'm going to ask that we hold off on questions for the CIWP till we get to that specific agenda item.
Yep. So I can just do a couple quick updates on fourth quarter reopening. And then if there's any questions for me about my report, we can do that. So on April 19th, we will go from having 32% of our students in person to roughly 64% of our students in person. So that's a 30% increase. And we're super excited to welcome back more students and families to the in-person model. What it will mean is that for those of us who have been in person this past month, we've been in person 4 days a week. With the increase in numbers, we will be shifting to a true hybrid model. So our students will now come 2 days a week in person. So we will have a Monday, Tuesday shift A and a Thursday, Friday shift B, similar to other schools around the district. And that again is just due to pod sizing and safety and being able to social distance and all of the protocols that we are very well versed in. So we're very excited about that. By Friday this week, families will be notified of which shift their child will be in. So those notifications will be going out on Friday. And then next week, updated schedules and things like that will be sent. We don't envision schedules changing a ton in terms of the times of day for different things, but really it'll be more around which specials specific grades will have when we shift to the true hybrid model. So more to come. We're very excited, but that's kind of an update on where we are and numbers and kind of the structure of how we will be operating for the fourth quarter. And I'm open to questions about my report or about fourth quarter.
I had a quick question, Mira. I know, speaking of attendance, if an in-person child stays home for the day, as long as they log in, they're marked as present, right?
Correct. There's different codes.
Okay.
So if you're an in-person student, but you stay home for any of a myriad of reasons, you log in as normal, you're still counted as present. It's just coded in a different way so that we know you were present virtually versus present in person.
Okay, so but that doesn't count against our attendance.
No.
Okay.
Well, that's good. Thank you for the continuing updates with the Tuesdays with Mira with the numbers, because I haven't been able to attend, but I have been able to go in and find the information that I needed regarding what's going on with the reopening. So thank you for staying on top of that and providing the numbers. I know we had talked about that at the last meeting as action item, so thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Let's see. I think there was one thing in here about the CPS protocols regarding the pickup and things. Just wanted to talk through that a little bit. And thank you for providing that information to the council with the link to the specific information. Just wanted to know, one, where can a parent find that information? I couldn't find a link, or a website.
You know what, that question I don't know the answer to. We, as administrators, we are sent like protocol, policy, like just updates periodically to make sure that we are aware of current protocol and current practice. So that information was actually taken from a memo that we received as administrators. I don't know, because it's actually a specific protocol. It's not necessarily, I don't believe it's a policy. I don't think you would find it under the policy index on the CPS website. So I could certainly ask the director of that department if it is like just publicly located somewhere, but I don't know the answer.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be good, just to, if we can provide our parent community or our caretaker community with that information so they can view it for themselves. That would be fantastic. Just going through what the protocol says and the procedure that you guys go through. Just wondering. I'm
grabbing my copy while you talk to me.
Oh, okay. So just wondering, like, and how it plays out in our building. So who are the individuals who, and this has happened to me before, I'm driving like a bat out of hell from Abbott trying to get to Addison, and I know I'm not going to make it in time. And so I'm trying to remember who I would reach out to, but just wanting to know if we can provide information for what a parent should do in that situation. Who's the person they should call, what, and just like, is there someone in the office until what time? And also with, let me see, I have one question here. I noticed too that it says that the CPS Student Safety Center can arrange for the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services to provide transportation if the parent, guardian, or emergency contact requires assistance to get to school. So just wanted to know who that contact and office number would be for that center should, God forbid, there be some kind of emergency where a parent or another emergency contact can't make it.
You mean the contact number for student safety?
Right. It's under item 4B.
Yeah, it's listed under 3B.
Oh, okay. Good to see. Okay, thank you.
No worries. So typically what happens for us is we have, and it really just depends on what after school programs are running, someone in the main office. So if it's like between 4 and 6 and it's Jay at school, they have access to the phone so that if someone does call, or we have our main office staff in there, or depending if it's like just the musical that day, Mr. Hall or Miss C, these are in the glory days of after school programs that were, highly attended. And depending on the program and the staff, so it could end up being, if it's the musical, Mr. Hall and Miss C are always there until all students are picked up. So if someone wasn't picked up or if someone was considered stranded, they would be working with me or Michelle. One of us would be coming back to school in that particular instance because there needs to be 2 people. And typically an administrator is one of them. So it just kind of depends on who is in the building, what program is in the building at the time, who's staffing the main office. What I can say in my 14-year, principalship, the number of times we've even come close to having to go follow this protocol, so to say, I think has been once that I remember. Because typically if a family is late, we've been able to get in touch with someone, whether it's an emergency contact or, another student's aunt who knows that, like we've always been able to kind of figure it out. So it's not a protocol that we've, I believe there was once, and I don't even remember if we had to follow it all the way through because I think they ended up being picked up. But it is not something that we have had to rely on. And another reason why we harp on emergency forms and contact information is, a lot for these kinds of purposes. So I certainly know it's gotten a lot of attention lately. It has been a protocol around for a while. And I just don't think that it's, at least for us, it's not something we've had to rely on a lot.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, and I'm glad there's obviously some care and nuance being taken to make sure that the family are coming first. So if I'm understanding you correctly, there's always someone in the building until 6. Just who it is depends on what's going on.
Correct.
And so then for the after school activities, I think.
Except for right now, no one's there until 6, but not during this COVID period, but
right,
yes.
Yeah. But so when we resume back in person, there are after school activities that sometimes end at 4, sometimes end at 4:30. That same thought process will apply as far as the kids getting, okay. Great.
Correct. Yep.
That's good.
Mira, one point of clarification. You said the school hasn't had to rely on this policy for like a number of years. My understanding is that this is a new protocol that's changed recently. Is that not the case?
The protocol was reshared with administrators in February, but it's a protocol that, we get updates all the time on like making sure you remember this protocol, make sure you remember this protocol. So it was reshared in February. I did look at the most recent date that I received it. But maybe there are nuances within it that have changed, but the actual protocol itself has been around for some time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for including this.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sorry I forgot the first time.
Now, did you want to speak to
Can I just had a couple quick questions on the principal report. Are we moving into the renaming conversation?
That's all. But there's something else that you want to say on something else.
Just a couple points of clarity around the report itself, and on the budget transfer section, just for clarity, that number in terms of what's being put into what's the account name? I guess it's the Friends. Is that a cumulative total, Mira, or is that as reflected for this fiscal year?
No. Sorry, I hear myself. I don't know why. So, no, what we're doing is we have a Friends of Agassiz line item in internal accounts that has the 103,000 roughly that's listed there. That was set aside for long-term, the 15% long-term savings in the kind of strategic plan we've been following. But we also have these 2 line items. And when I met with Patty and Jim from Friends of Bulldogs, we have 2 line items. One is FOA Fund of Need, and one is FOA Giving Tree. And they've been there for at least a year, maybe 2. So we're not totally sure which items they were supposed to have been attached to during the time they were raised. So our discussion was to just move them into that Friends of Agassiz long-term saving line to just condense and keep everything more streamlined.
So that number 106, et cetera, is that number, is that a cumulative number over time, or is that as reflected for this fiscal year?
No, reflective over time.
Okay, thank you. And just going back to competency D, when we talk about just, that idea of how we're empowering and motivating families, and I echoed mirror Tina's sentiment about Tuesdays with Mirror. It's always the same time I have professional learning workshops, and it kills me that I can't make these conversations. But I really do love the fact that there's this open forum, or I mean, there's an opportunity to kind of have some candid conversations about what's going on with the school, et cetera. And I think I've shared this before, but I'll also, encourage us to think about ways in which, we can include and be cognizant of other ways in which we're working with families and empowering them and motivating them in that regard, in addition to Tuesdays with Mirror, because I do think that there are different ways in which the school does that, right? So like how we're the fundraising piece, right? Or how we're including or thinking about including families around decision-making processes like responding to surveys or the CIWP or something like that. So just, thinking about how we're really touching that competency in addition to Tuesdays with Mirror, because I think there's a lot of nuggets that are happening there that may not be captured in here as well. And it can also help broaden our thinking about that engagement piece.
Can I ask two things in relation to all that? One is, when you're talking about that line item, the big giant number, is that in a place where CPS cannot take it? Because a few years ago, you may remember some schools lost all of their additional funds that they were saving, and certain schools were smart and had all their friends of money in a different place or went in and spent it immediately. Is it in a safe place that if CPS decides we're going to pull all these line items to put in toward our budget shortfalls?
It's in our internal account, so technically it's seen by CPS, but it's in our separate school account.
Okay. I just wanted to always be aware of that, because we don't know when CPS would do that again. And certain schools were really decimated and lost a lot of money, and other schools did not. My next thing is, when we're talking about what Sarah just said about parent engagement, I would like to put that on a future conversation about what is our personality of our school? What is our persona? And social media is a big part of that. Some of you have seen me on schools. You're like, I didn't know you had someone at that school. I'm like, I don't. I just follow their media. But that might be something that we start to look at as, who are we? What is our voice as an LSC? What is our school's personality and voice? And how are some of those ways? We do have a parent Bulldog page, but it's only seems to be our friends or who we know. Oh, hey, you should be on this page. I don't feel like it's been shared very wide. It has a small readership.
That's a private group.
Yeah, it's a private group. But is there a way for more activity on our actual school Facebook page and things like that? So I'd just like us to throw that out there and think about for the future.
I think you raise a good point, Lori, and if I'm understanding things correctly, as we get to, and just conversations with Mira that I've had, as we get to finalizing the CIWP and rebranding and the logo and the ongoing equity work, we will look at all those pieces. And I think I just have some notes for when we get to the committee updates. The committees have kind of been in a hold, pending our CIWP, because of course that's what we want to track to, and we want that to be the forefront of what we do. But I think it will be, as I've spoken with Mira about, an opportunity for the committees to engage their specific parent communities, and also to support the work of the CIWP and the staff with maybe doing the footwork to gather information that we need, that the administration needs to take a look at our practices and look at our curriculum and supporting them in that work. And so I just putting that out there so that I'm not the only one who has to remember it, because I'm not reliable in that regard. So when we get to that, I would like to continue that discussion.
And I think it affects our enrollment too, because when people are shopping for new schools, they look at social media, they look at your website, they look at your LSC meetings, what's the energy that you're giving off. And I think it's really important that we advertise it, because I think we do have a good energy and we need to start sharing that more.
One question about the funds that are being transferred, is there no need that can be immediate needing support with the return of more students? Or are we okay on masks? Are we okay on whatever supplies the teachers need in their rooms? Are we okay on all those things?
Yeah, so what we've been doing, we're fine on masks and those kinds of things, but with the return of more students and like first grade, contacted Patty the other day, some of the Friends of money that's been raised this year specifically to support during this like remote hybrid in-person learning, Friends of currently has still with them. And so those funds have been used for that. This money that's in internal accounts was really designated by prior LSC and voted on as that 15% long-term hold. So this money wouldn't be used for that. We would have to vote as a council to move money out of this line that we're discussing now in order to use it for anything different.
The Fund a Need and the Giving Tree? Okay.
Correct. We would have to vote on using that for anything other than
okay, I see.
But what Friends of is still doing currently with the money raised this year is supporting in any way with the return of students. So I think first grade needed more like bins and supplies and like things like that as more kids are coming back, and Friends of is still supporting in that manner because the funds raised this year were specifically for supporting that purpose.
Okay, that's great.
I'm just gonna say one more time. Can we just everybody realize that CPS could probably take that money? I just feel really nervous about pulling money out of the Friends of account. I know before. I'm sorry, I've done this before, and I've seen what happened. I can pull up if anybody wants research. It just by having all of that extra money that we're saving for emergencies or for when something big comes up, it's in by putting it in the school fund and pulling it out of that safety zone. It makes me really nervous.
I think that's going to a FO. Point of clarity, Mira, is this an FOA account, the long-term savings?
No, it's in their general. It's in the CPS can get it. I call it. It's in the CPS can take it account, which makes me nervous because it has happened.
Well, I think two things to this discussion. I think a number of years ago, we were in a state and federal education like complete budget crisis. And there was discussion, I think it was 3-4 years ago, that internal accounts under a former CEO would be looked at by school and potential funds could be used. Our funding was not there at that time, but since that time, that has not occurred again. So I think that the money that is in there now, has not been touched. I think the other part of that conversation is the strategic plan conversation. And if you'll notice kind of in the one I circulated, after meeting with Patty and Jim from Friends of, shifted the language in the strategic plan from what it used to be to not necessarily doing that 15% long-term savings every year and providing more flexibility for those short and midterm goals. So I think we're kind of crossing into that conversation at the same time, and maybe best to kind of finagle that or specify that in the strategic plan, because that's really where that needs to live, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Quick question. Is there going to be a modified supply list for fourth quarter?
There is a supply list already online under reopening on our school website, and it's by grade level. It will also be sent by teachers in the coming week to remind families who are now returning in person.
Okay.
And then we also will be doing, in this Sunday's principal post, there will be device pickup for anyone returning for the first time who needs a CPS device. And there will be supply drop off for any family who wants to do that prior to the 19th. So those kind of schedules and plans will come out this weekend.
Okay.
So just a general budget question. With things as upside down and different as they are we tracking to any particular overspend in a particular area, or any pending lack of support in a particular area we need, or tracking to something completely different than what we projected, or anything like that? I didn't see anything like that in the information you provided, but just
No, not necessarily. I think that more of our funding, I think we talked about this at the end of last year or even earlier this year, like more of our funding has gone heavily into technology. And maybe that used to be more of a mid to long-term goal. And now it was kind of like, get it in our hands immediately. So there's been some shifting of priority, I would say. Those things were always on our list, but in terms of, you know, being down here and being up here, they quickly jumped. I would tend to say that in the short term, like the playground renovation is probably not where the biggest need is going to be. And ironically was discussing today the need to get some feedback on from staff and then parents as well. What are those funding priorities? Because I do think they've shifted and we haven't done a survey around that in a year. And I think the priorities have shifted. Whether those things were on our radar before, maybe they're more of a priority now, but I think it's a good opportunity to come back to kind of making a prioritized list.
So you're not seeing any sacrificial blood loss or anything? Okay. No. Okay, that's good. Were there any other questions besides before we move on to the renaming piece?
I have one question. If it seems like we're sort of like at the beginning of another surge, if less people decide to send the kids back, is there, I don't know, like, is there a threshold at which you could like bring it back to 2 days? I'm sorry, 4 days in person, or is it just set it to
model? That's a great question. Yes, I would assume that if all of our pods dropped below, you know, the 15, like if we were below that in all levels, I would think we could shift course in the middle, but I honestly don't know that. I would probably have to find out if we could go from 2 back to 4. I don't know. I think that'd be ideal if it could happen that way, but I'd have to find out.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I know it's a big shift for those who've been doing 4 to go down to 2. I certainly understand, and we tried many different ways to not, but we don't have the space. So, just in terms, oh, sorry, are there any other questions, or I was jumping into renaming. Okay. So the Wednesday before spring break, the board meeting was held to officially vote on the renaming. And so just to give everyone, so Harriet Tubman Elementary School, and I say that because it is a little bit of a shift from IB and International Baccalaureate and all of those things. So long story short, there are very strict guidelines with International Baccalaureate organization. Some updates that we didn't even realize when we were discussing this a few weeks ago. So we are Harriet Tubman Elementary School, and the board meeting was, I don't know if people had a chance to tune in, incredibly powerful. We had 3 8th graders speak, really from their hearts. And I got to tell you, I offered like a day before, like, come together, we can talk and brainstorm. They came, already had written their things and read them to, I mean, it just, those were all their own words and their own thoughts. And it was just really an incredible moment to hear from them, the impact and what they say is kind of their legacy for their grammar school. So the board members asked fantastic questions and were very complimentary. So it was wonderful to just, you know, hear from them. And then really, as the board was also at the same time discussing our name, learning about this proposal from the Office of Equity on what a renaming policy really could and should look like from an equity standpoint, and utilizing the student inquiry model that we've put forward as a way to engage schools and engage young people in the process. So not just kind of from our local level, but at a district level, very exciting to hear that those conversations are starting. And just in follow-up conversations that I've been having, there will be community hall, town hall sessions starting, I think, in May for parents to start engaging on what that policy should look like. throughout our district. And I've asked specifically if there could be a town hall for our community, just as people who have gone through it, but I don't quote me that it's happening because I don't have confirmation yet. But I've asked just that would be a great opportunity of people who have gone through it to provide a different level of feedback than people who haven't. So that's more to come on that. But I will also say, I know there's this big question of like, well, who are we now? What do we put out? Are we Harriet Tubman? Are we Louis J. Agassiz? What do we say? Officially, board policy is that our name is officially changed July 1st. So in some places there was this snafu, and in some places it had been reflected as Tubman, which was causing big problems because they weren't speaking to the other systems then that hadn't gotten changed over. So officially it's July 1st. So everything still remains at the official CPS level as Agassiz. And so what I've just been telling teachers, or, you can say Louis J. Agassiz, now known as Harriet Tubman, like just to keep it kind of out there that this is coming, but we aren't officially listed anywhere as Tubman. So that's that piece. However, the exciting part of that is it gives us time, and in the coming weeks, people will start to see surveys coming out to select new logos, to select social media, like kind of handles and catchy slogans and things like that. So we're going to start kind of a school-wide process to identify those kinds of things and involve students and parents and staff so that we all pick something together. And then the great news is by July, we'll have it, we'll be ready and up and running. So there you have it.
I'm just going to say that all ties in really well to the earlier conversation about what is our persona, what is our online personality. It's a good time to maybe just take a look at everything, and it all works out together.
So as I understand the whole July 1st effectivity, but for internal communications, can we start that language immediately as far as I don't even know. I can't visualize it, whether or not it's typically in your post or not, the use of the name Agassiz.
It's not in my post, other than Aspen still says Agassiz. Like our email signatures, some people have it as, teacher or principal at, unless this the school name. Official letterhead still has to stay the same. I mean, there are certain things that. Oh,
yeah, that's understandable. I would think that would have potential to be external as well. But yeah, I guess I'm talking more like internal communications. Go ahead.
No, I'm just trying to think through of different examples of what we're, to make sure we're talking about the same thing. And I'm not
agenda, LSC agenda, how can the LSC, start using that name on documents and things like that? That's
the thing I don't know, because LSC is an entity of CPS, and technically, those are questions I probably need to find out. I honestly don't know, and I would hate to see us post Harriet Tubman and then have it somehow cause a problem with some LSC rule or school code, or you know what I mean? I think that, the quick ways are like a parent handbook, or, maybe an email signature. It might have to say both for a certain point of time, but I think there are things like that. But, those are more official committees or documents. I don't think that we would be able to switch it over yet.
I think Jose's here in the meeting. Would he know?
Well, it's not just, he is here, and I can certainly let him speak. It's more of a law department question, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just had a question. I know that we're working on getting the logo and all of that stuff, but would it be possible to do some not necessarily the official logo swag and those kinds of things? It's just, I have my kids getting rid of every single they don't want to wear Agassiz t-shirts or any Agassiz sweatshirts and all those things. So, we're doing a big goodwill pile. But at the same time, we'd love to, I think the kids are really excited to have something that says Tubman on it.
Yeah.
And so even if we did introducing Tubman Elementary kind of t-shirt or something that isn't the official logo we have forever, isn't branded perfectly, whatever, I think the kids would really enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. To be honest, kind of in my mind, what I'm thinking is we would have something before the end of the school year so that even if they wear it in June, I mean, come July, it's official. Like a kid wearing a Tubman t-shirt, I think is different than, right, like the CPS website saying Harriet Tubman. But yeah, I think I agree with you in trying to get something out in the hands of, kids and families, really. And staff, let me tell you, struggling with the same idea of what do I wear on Monday when I'm supposed to wear my school stuff? So
yeah, I think it's a really important conversation. And one of the fundraiser pieces sent out will have that conversation because it does raise a really interesting point as well with how we manage the old spirit wear. It's a little different than having a Cleveland Indians t-shirt, which I find offensive, but wearing, now our Agassiz spirit wear has basically been deemed offensive and racist by the school district. And so that merits conversation with what we're representing and how we handle that being worn in our building anymore. It's a conversation that needs to be had, not just left to chance. And so I think as we move forward, we need to think about that.
That kind of crosses a fine line, though, Tina. I'm going to push you. That's very dress code like, and there's some very specific. I think that just involves a very deep conversation and some real research and thought.
Oh, that's my point exactly. That we need to have those conversations and thinking in. I don't know what the answer is, but it's something that needs to be addressed that we shouldn't just leave out there to fall where it may.
Right, but I also do think talking about the equity piece, there's a lot of kids that Agassiz wear is a big part of their wardrobe. And speaking from a place of privilege that I can get rid of all my kids' Agassiz wear and donate it, and they'd have other things to wear. That's not the case for all of our families. And so I really do think that having that conversation and making sure that would never shame anyone for wearing something because it's their clothes. So I think it's a really touchy topic, and I think we all have to be very aware of lots of different factors that could be at play.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kate. That's a really good point.
One other thing that I was going to say is I know we're going to be sending emails out to families who got into our school. And can we say, when we send it out, soon to be elementary? Because I just think a lot of families may have read something about this or heard something about this.
Absolutely. There will be, we have a letter we send when we get that list, we have a letter that we send directly to the families that get in. And there will most certainly be, a paragraph, a discussion about the process we just went through, and we are now Harriet Tubman Elementary School. And so, because we also want them to know, right, that they're going to need to find us under that going forward. Maybe they don't decide to come this coming year. They might want to come the following year. So there's a lot of communication that's going to have to go out around that. And most definitely will be part of anyone who gets in through the lottery or contacts us or any of those pieces. Yeah.
I just want to come back to to how you kicked us off, Mira, and just acknowledging that moment with the board meeting. I was on that call. And I just say it was a phenomenal moment for the school overall, and just hats off to the school community in general, to where we're at, and just hats off to the students. Their speeches were phenomenal, and how we as a school are really making a mark, not only in leading the change that we see, but also, for the district in general, and just kind of seeing other movements of that broader than the district. So I just wanted to come back to that because that was pretty significant. And I know we are about getting things done, moving forward. But I just wanted to, you know, make that moment in time and just say congratulations. It was just an awesome moment. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad you did, because for all of us, truly, and if you didn't watch it, you can still find it. I have the recording if you want to see it. It really was just, I still, like, I'm sweating right now, but I just got chills thinking about it. It really was a very powerful moment to see kind of the culmination of all of it, and just in that place, in that space, and just hear the great discussion that really happened around it too, for different district leaders as well. So I'm glad you mentioned that again.
Do you have the recording
I have
for the website by any chance?
Yeah, so it's on the CPS YouTube account. I don't know that I have permissions to share it. I have the link and I know which points were on it. So I'm trying to think of how it's very long. So I don't know that I would be able to upload it. It's like a 4 hour, 5 hour, you know, I mean, it's the whole board meeting.
Oh yeah, I was wondering if like a portion, if our
you know what? Maybe someone in CPS could do that for me. I could certainly ask. Right now, it's literally the entirety of the board meeting.
Just a point to think about, you know, as we are transitioning that process, is there a way that we can maybe create some type of video montage or something that just kind of captures this journey we've taken as a school on the renaming process? I think we've got, you know, videos and snippets here and there, but I wonder if that could be something that we could use to help tell that story, especially with new incoming students and families.
That's a great idea. I've been trying to think about like a wall in the building too to tell the story, and I haven't landed on any great ideas, but absolutely, I think it's a remarkable process to highlight and just show the work that was done and the involvement really from all angles. So totally.
How will we celebrate this?
Well, my big plan is to have some people out and do like a actual ribbon cutting, not, you know, dedication kind of big thing. Yet to come, obviously, but I think it's the 2 hour and something minute mark where students spoke. I do have it written down somewhere, but I don't have. So my thought was that some people from CPS, some elected officials, some families, some parent, you know, like I'm trying to think through how we do it safely though also. So I don't yet have a big celebration, but that's kind of my thought process.
I look forward to being able to get together to celebrate that.
Right? Yeah.
Man, do I look forward to that. As far as the logo and the surveys for that, what's the timing on that?
So I'm hoping here in the next week or two, we'll have some things to look through, just drafts. I know that when Senator Feigenholtz was here, I believe she talked about, you know, some of her team that's willing to do some pro bono work. And so there's some people, graphic designers, doing some things for us to look through. And my thought is to put out a variety of different logos and basically just get feedback on them. And if we land on any of the ones given, great. If not, back to the drawing board kind of an idea, but to get us a starting point. And then also just to let people know, like, our colors don't, like, the bulldog doesn't have to change. The maroon and gray doesn't have to, like, some consistency to carry over, I think is really important. So just highlighting those pieces for our community as well. But my hope is in the next week or two to have at least a starting point to get some feedback on that part, because once you have that part, then it's the letterhead and then it's the banners and then it's, you know, like, you have to get that first part. So hopefully in the next week or two.
Have you received any communication from CPS as far as any signage changes in the building or how things will be handled?
In terms of the actual, so we figured out Mark, our engineer, figured out one thing. The lighted kiosk, like the main kiosk, that part that says Agassiz slides out. So we think we figured out that we can just order another piece that would slide in. We don't yet know exactly which vendor and how to do it. And, you know, I have Alderman Tunney and Sarah Feigenholtz, who are still trying to hopefully help us with that funding piece. But we can't take it out in the meantime because of the lights and electric behind it. So we learned that. In terms of the actual facade of the building, I don't have an answer yet. And that really is a capital thing because it's in the actual physical structure of the school. That piece I don't have an answer on yet.
I will let everyone know that we do now have a new email address for the LSC, but the old email address is still active and it forwards to the new email address. And so we will get that publicized. But if we miss anyone, again, the old one is still active. And so I'll follow up with the council and with you, Mira, as we meet individually for that information, and so that I can start going out in your communications. But it just, if anyone wants to know that email address, and I had to write it down myself so I wouldn't forget it, is capital H, capital T, Tubman, so H Tubman, capital LSC at gmail.com. Any other questions on the renaming? Okay, thanks so much, Mira, for all the information.
Okay.
And, like I said, when we get to the CIWP, we'll discuss that more at length. The next item on the agenda, the budget transfers and approvals. I already had some questions there. Is there a motion?
No, I'll motion. I motion to move the fund a need money and giving tree money into the long-term savings budget line within internal accounts.
I'll second. Is there discussion? Additional discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve the budget transfers as provided, suggested prior to the meeting. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Do you have the count, Sandra or Mary?
It's unanimous, so 12 yeses.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the IB report. The IB report was provided for review prior to the meeting. We'll open the floor for discussions or questions. Okay, I hate going first all the time. I have some questions, but I'm trying to give someone else a chance to talk. Okay, just looking, first of all, a lot of really good information. I really am appreciative of these reports. One thing, looking at the Student Voice Committee and a meeting with the Wellness Wednesday Committee, just wanting to know, I know the students, I think it's the students who sent out a survey asking what activities, and just wondering, you know, how that unfolded, how they rolled it out, what kind of response rate they had. Maybe there's something we can learn from the kiddos, see how they responded to each other.
Well, and I'll have Michelle jump in as she would like in this one, but getting them to that landing point of that survey was a process in itself. Took us a while, but we got there.
I heard about it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. Yeah, you know, getting them to formulate thoughts and then coming up with a survey. But listen, once they did it, and we got it out. They sent it to teachers to help get more responses. So then the teachers disseminated to students. But what I will say, that the greatest part for me was listening to the Student Voice Committee presenting it to the Wellness Wednesday staff committee was just very cool. And like having them brainstorm back and forth with each other, and it was like a collaborative grade level meeting. It was very empowering to listen to, and to have them like just very freely giving ideas to staff members and just having it be a real back and forth. So I don't know, Ms. McNally, if you want to add anything to that, but.
Yeah, I would echo what you said, Ms. Weber. It was just really nice to have them sit and talk to one another after the survey was complete. And the last Wednesday before we went out on spring break, the kids decided, and the teachers from the Wellness Wednesday, we pushed out like the fact that we wanted kids to just have time on that day to just talk about whatever that they wanted to talk about based on topics of interest. So I feel like with the fact that like we listened to them, we responded, we implemented what the suggestion was probably very empowering for them. And they also helped us with some topics in April, which I think today's was peer pressure. And that again came from the Student Voice Committee. So hopefully they're seeing their fruits of their labor and joining our meetings, even though it did take a bit. But I think it's in the end, it has been, hopefully they feel like, they are making some sort of change in the building. That's what it's all about.
Well, I happened to be in the kitchen during the meeting the last time, and Addison was at the counter eating her lunch. Yeah, it was really powerful. It was
I think it
really well.
It was the first time they all talked. Like
it was the first time they were all on camera and they all talked was to present to the other teachers. Exactly.
Yeah. So we're gonna keep going with that. It was great.
Yeah, I think the Wellness Wednesday. I think the whole concept is really a good one and potentially so powerful. I hope that the student voice will continue to be a part of what rolls out with the Wellness. They're in a tough spot right now. So we can probably give some to help get through it. One question I have about the Wellness Wednesday. So when these activities take place, are there any checks on student engagement? Like I would just hate for like one child to be off to themselves, not really engaging, or are teachers dialed in? Are they able to dial into that point, or is it kind of a free for all?
That's a great question for me to follow up with the teachers on. I would probably need more specific feedback from them on the engagement, specific to the different, I can say in my house, my kids are like doing scavenger hunts on Wellness Wednesday and living their best life. But, at a whole classroom level, I'd probably need more data than just them.
As the classroom teacher on the call, I'll weigh in on just one class in first grade. Similarly, I think they really like it. I think it's a bridge between kids are home and kids are in person, so they all look forward to Wednesday when they're together. And as for that one question, we do breakout rooms, which I know the older groups do as well. And then the teacher is able to go between the breakout rooms. So, and the kids get some time to do talking and backgrounds and things that they find enjoyable. So, again, I'm only one teacher, but I've talked to others and everybody seems to think it's going well from what I've heard anecdotally.
That's good. That's good.
I just want to make a comment. One of the things when we're talking about equity is just to start to realize that things that we've always done may not always be the best choice. I did have a parent reach out to me as an LSC rep, and I know that she contacted, I believe she contacted Tina. I know she went to Mira, and about Crazy Hair Day, that there's a lot of talk happening now that Crazy Hair Day, some of that may not be appropriate. I'm still hearing a lot of, okay, boys and girls, so we're not being very gender welcoming. And then just starting to put those thoughts in when the kids are planning special events. Also, just for the teachers, I had another family mention to me because I was feeling it too. So I was happy to hear it. When you go on spring break, what are you doing for spring break? What did you do after spring break? And it really shows the haves and have-nots. So these kids all, and also in COVID, these kids all went to Florida, and I went to Disney World, and I went to here. And the other kid is like, I was home, you know, I stayed with grandma. And so just to start to realize that, and when we're guiding the kids, because they're going to go on these things that just seem fun on the surface, but that we start to look differently and through a different lens when we're planning these types of things.
Yeah, and I, to that point, Lori, it was in my principal report, definitely around that Spirit Week feedback, because that was definitely, well received and a very thoughtful piece of feedback, and, good learning really for everyone. So it's definitely going to be a journey. And I think that being able to provide feedback in a safe and reflective and respectful manner is really important. And it's going to be the only way we all kind of grow and learn together. So definitely very appreciative of that. And then, not only for the staff, but it's educating the students, because that idea actually came from students. So it's another learning point, for them. So it's definitely going to be a process. But I think if we all, continue to kind of share those pieces of feedback, the better we'll all be for it, really.
This school seems to be, I've come from other schools who weren't as great as that. And when Kate was bringing up about the spirit wear, that some kids may only have those shirts. The fun run shirts are part of their main thing. And it is great to see and to serve on an LSC that thinks that way, and to have parents and staff and everybody else who thinks that way. So I appreciated that parent reaching out to me, and also to you all. And I just hope we can continue those kind of great conversations.
Yep, absolutely.
With under the notes of interest and excuse me, in the IB report, the first bullet point, talking about reviewing the units. I know the oh wait, maybe no, actually I'm getting ahead of myself. The IB implementation team that meets. Just wondering, is there an active equity piece in that, as far as how how the equity piece is reflected in the IB unit? I know we talked sometime in the CIWP team meetings about how we marry those two, because of course the IB is so specific as far as, the learning units and things. And I think just having that outside equity voice would be beneficial. So just wondering, who's providing that lens in that group.
And Miss McNally can jump in here if she wants, but I would say honestly, it's a work in progress. And I think as we're reviewing units and reviewing curriculum and all of those things, continuing to put on that equity, looking at everything from that equity lens, as we'll talk about with the CIWP, is going to be learning for all of us to consistently bring it back to that, so that it's infused in everything we do. It's not this separate thing. And so, looking at IB units that we've taught before and saying, okay, well, we taught it that way, but really there's this other way of thinking that we could have taught it through, or other resources we could have used. And that's just going to be consistent, and it's going to happen on a consistent basis. Would I say right now that it happens in every IB planning meeting? No, probably not, in all honesty. And I say that just being very vulnerable and honest, that we all acknowledge we have work to do. So I think it's more of a focus now, obviously, and will continue to be. And as we look at CIWP and talk about all the language that we're infusing there, we'll continue to see that as more of a natural conversation, and just more of a natural way of thinking. So, yeah.
I have a question along that. So then how are we starting to get people that look to how to see that lens? Like the people who are on the committees, if that's just not naturally how they think, that's not naturally. They may were on this committee because they bring this piece of the puzzle, but are we finding those people? Are we searching people out to add them to their voices to do that? Because I have seen harm done. I have seen harm done because nobody was looking at it through an equity lens until it's after, and then we're trying to catch up, and we're not very good at catching up. So how can we start?
I think there's a few layers to that, Lori. Yeah, I think there's a few layers to that, and Tina and I have talked about this at length. There's the layer of we're looking at it from an equity lens and we're planning in a certain way. And then there's the everyday kind of just decisions that are made and things that we do that may not be reflected in a unit plan or a lesson plan. And so there's the planning kind of mindset and everyone working together to create those equity driven units. And then there's kind of, like you're saying, the kind of just snap decisions made in a classroom and made in teaching, not without thought or planning, but you don't do everything with another colleague. And so until we all have this general philosophy and this shift in thinking, there's multiple layers to it just happening naturally for everyone. And
I do want to say, just it wasn't, I'm not talking about like snap judgments in
no,
class.
I know.
We're not going to expect anybody, but if it's a curriculum that is used in every class and it maybe possibly has been used every year, like where is it when someone's planning? Are they supported in looking into that? Not asking like everything in the class is not coming down to a group decision.
Yeah.
But where are we getting those people, and where are the teachers and the staff getting that training and that new shift? So
Yeah.
how is that happening?
So I would say it's going to be multiple layers. We are certainly not there. What I would also say is that there's going to have to be some respect, collaboration, patience, support to do this in a way where everyone feels respected and supported in their process for their own learning too. And so, you know, like we said, the renaming was the start of a lot of these very difficult, hard to have conversations and examining kind of practice and philosophy. In May, we're having another very big professional development for our staff around equity issues and bias and things like that, that I'm co-facilitating with Carol, who's the facilitator who helped throughout the renaming. So there's just going to be a lot of work that has to happen and multiple touch points and layers. And so I think it's just going to be part of the journey and not a quick answer, a quick fix, so to say.
I think when we get more into the CIWP conversation, that deliberate language and those actions spelled out specifically how we're going to not only intertwine those equity, and I mean equity across the board, equity in all aspects into the CIWP, but also get the staff and the administration the support they need, you know, in the proper place to be able to roll that out. You know, and so I think we're just going to have to really be deliberate and thoughtful in the CIWP conversation and involve external input from the experts as we do this.
And I just want to jump in real quick, and Nick, you too, because you're on the implementation team. But we have been talking, especially as we're revising our units and getting them ready to go to BQC, Building Quality Curriculum, so that IB can review them. We're really taking a look at standards and teaching with tolerance standards, which is now called social justice standards. We're taking a look at those standards, and that group, I don't know if you remember, they did PD for us at the beginning of the year, but it's very powerful. Those standards are age appropriate from kindergarten through 8th. We'll continue our work with them, hopefully next year. Mira, I think you could talk more about that, but it's something that definitely we're keeping in mind when we're writing our units, is like looking at standards, looking at the WIDA standards as well, like standards to support kids for the English language, just to be able to say that like we're looking at this with a different lens to be able to support all kids within the units, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just going to add, as a member of the IB implementation team, because I think that was your original question, Tina, right? And I think we're having these great conversations, but I think we're kind of getting like way bigger than I think where we originally or intended to start. So like the IB implementation team, what we've been doing this year is really, now that we are a wall-to-wall IB school, looking at our policies. So we started with our language policy, then our academic honesty policy, and we're now on to our assessment policy, and really looking at it, you know, the PYP and the MYP, and how can we merge them. And obviously now we are thinking of it through the CPS equity lenses, and 4 members, just so you know, Lori, 4 members of the IB implementation team are also on the CIWP team. So we've really been looking at that with the equity lens. So it is, you know, definitely a work in progress, but it is also definitely at the front of our mind as we work on it.
I just have a question for point of clarity. Thank you, Nick, for sharing that. When we talk about equity lens, are we referring to the CPS framework?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The second bullet point under notes of interest. I'm just curious, what's exactly meant by digital citizenship? What does that term mean?
Nick, Michelle, either one want to jump in? Or Emily, I guess, too? I mean, I can keep talking, but.
Yeah, I'm driving now, so I'm not going to be able to answer if that's okay. Sorry, guys.
Oh my gosh, be careful.
So digital citizenship is really at different grade levels talking about how are you safe online? How do you know which sites are appropriate? How do you know, like if I'm researching, do I go to Wikipedia or do I go to Encyclopedia Britannica? Or, you know, how are you a good citizen in the digital age, basically? Being responsible, being respectful, but just in digital platform.
Oh, okay.
That's a very brief.
Okay.
One quick example, Tina, is, for example, in the academic honesty policy, you know, when you're online doing research, you know, what is plagiarism? What is this? You know, what is citing? And it's just, yeah, just being a citizen in an age of digital media.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering about that. I couldn't come up with a definition on my own. Okay, thank you. I was too lazy to Google. Okay, let's see. So for the building quality curriculum evaluation, does the timing of the delivery of the units and things like that, is it complementary to what we need to provide in the CIWP as far as actions, or, you know, are we under the gun to get something to the IB folks for review before we really have things solidly mapped out in our CIWP? Or do you understand my question there?
I think, but they're kind of separate. So BQC is really, we have kind of sought out their services to help make sure that the units we are writing for IB are aligned and really a quality unit that match the standards of the IBO. And so it's really more of an alignment with the IB programming and philosophy.
Okay.
And that's to make sure that when, you know, wouldn't it be great if you're authorized and then it's like, oh, we're done, but they come back and visit and check that you're, you know, so it's to make sure that we are maintaining and keeping our curriculum in line with the IB philosophy, so that when we do have our reauthorization visit, we know that we've stayed on pace and that we're doing what we need to do in terms of IB programming.
Okay. And
so
how often? Okay. So, and how often is that the body comes back?
Oh, 5 years. Yeah.
5 years. Okay. Okay.
So this will be, so the BQC is assisting us with getting ready for the spring 2022 MYP reauthorization. And a big part of it this year is that IB have updated a lot of their standards in a lot of subjects. So every few years, you know, they are adapting and updating. So it's just, as Mira said, making sure our current units meet the standards as they change, and just to getting us ready for our reauthorization. whenever that is, a year and a half away.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the IB report? Bless you, Sarah. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the CIWP. Is there any general overview or anything you wanted to give, Mira? Give you the start
well,
off?
it's a lengthy document. I'm incredibly proud, and we should all be incredibly proud of the work that the CIWP committee and the deep thought. I feel this has really been the most kind of thorough group and way that we've looked at this document in years. And then the staff's contribution in the most recent professional development that staff looked at it again using the CPS equity framework to kind of guide our thinking. So what I will say is we've made a lot of gains. So first we were going to do its own equity priority, and then we were like, wait a minute, equity should be embedded in everything we do. So then we went back to thinking about those specific action items that were just targeted on an equity standpoint, that those lived under different, under other strategies that we already had within the document. And then really wanting to make sure that if we did that, we didn't lose the potency of those action items or the potency of the equity standpoint that we're taking. So then I did share it with the equity team, and they looked over our document and gave very specific feedback that I will be bringing back to the CIWP team around language that could be embedded to strengthen that equity standpoint in the entirety of the document. And let me just say, they were incredibly honored, but also very surprised that kind of, or maybe not surprised, I don't know. They were impressed that we were really thinking about the entirety of this document through that standpoint and how to make the entirety of the document stronger by using kind of their framework. So we are not done yet. It is taking us a long time, but it's all for very good reason. And kind of that next layer is to come back and look at our existing strategy statements to enhance them and strengthen the equity language within them.
I know that, I mean, when I look it up online and I see who's on our team, I know that some of the people who are on the team are no longer parents at the school. Are we replacing the people who are no longer in those positions?
No, we didn't replace anyone right now because so who we currently have, we have Tina, Shirag, Patty, myself, and watch me go and forget someone. Mr. Collins, Mr. Hall, Miss Wallace, Miss Brown Rivera, Miss Fryer, and
Miss Barillas and Miss McNally.
Barillas and Miss McNally. There you go. And to be real honest with you, I think if we continue to add people, we're going to get too big that we're not going to be a real working group anymore. So I think as we complete this update and move into the second year of this plan, you know, we can always reconfigure or think through just changes. But I think right now to see this one through, it makes sense to stick with the group that we've got working.
I totally understand that. It just seems that we lost a lot of the parent voices on there and the non-staff voices. And so I think when we're talking about how are we expanding how we look and see things, that having all the same people on the same committees. So, oh, well, we're working on this, so we're going to do that same thing here. That means that we're just shortening up the range of perspectives. So, but anyway, I'm just throwing that out there.
Gotcha.
Mary, you mentioned earlier, I think, and I thought I wrote it down, that there's going to be a professional development in May around the CPS equity framework.
More specifically, Carol and I are working on planning some things around bias and privilege, and it'll always be tied back to the CPS equity framework, but not necessarily about understanding that framework itself. We did do some work in our last professional development session about the equity framework itself and understanding the 4 components, and then using that understanding to look at the CIWP.
Okay, and then that was, how was that professional development facilitated?
That was me. That was me getting everyone more acquainted with those 4 frames of the framework and using the CIWP as kind of the document to help us grapple with those different frameworks and components in a live document, and to kind of better understand them by looking at real life examples of how they fit or don't fit within our current plan.
Okay. And you said, so this year, so next school year will be the 2nd year for this current CIWP?
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And the feedback from the Office of Equity, you said you're going to share. So just in general, how was that feedback provided? Is it just kind of an overall assessment, or is it very specific? Or
no, it was very specific. It was actually Liam and Liam went through and read each of our strategies. And I said that we wanted to beef those up in particular to reflect the 4 frames of the framework. And so he read ours and then provided feedback on kind of rewrites or additions or ways we could strengthen them to support the equity stance.
Okay, for the strategies?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I had him just start with strategies because that's kind of the meatier portion. And then if we decide as a committee, I mean, he's happy to review anything we said, but he started with that.
And so I know unexpectedly had to cancel the last meeting for our conflict. Do you have an idea when the next?
You know what, I thought of that today, Tina, and I was like, oh my God, no, but it will be soon. It was on my calendar today to like try and pick a day. No, but it'll be in the next couple of weeks because we've got to kind of nail this down before we start voting on budgets. So.
Okay, that's where my question is leading. Okay, so for when we look at a timing aspect,
yeah,
when do we start reviewing budget information and budget voting? When is that?
I don't know. That's the short answer. I was, but right before break, principals, administrators were informed that like they were letting us enjoy our break, and they were going to give us our budgets shortly after. Well, I don't know what that looks like. A lot of times we get them over break, and then our breaks are spent like preparing budgets. So I'm assuming here shortly, but I don't have a date or anything close to that in mind. But I can't imagine it's going to be very long.
Okay. And so when we review the, excuse me, so after another CIWP meeting, team meeting, and I think the plan is to bring it to the LSC in May, correct?
Yep.
So as I was reviewing where it stands now, there are timelines populated for different action items, and then there's the evidence column where there's some evidence of things. And so when we get the CIWP in May, will that evidence be updated? Because there are some things that have indicated that they were done in summer of 2020, you know, and so just wondering what status information we'll have as far as the actions when we review it in May.
Yeah, no, that'll have to be more populated. That was kind of our document to start going through what we had done, what needed to be kept, revised, or removed. It was kind of that last exercise. So the evidence column would be updated, and then some of the evidence column also has questions about like, that's more for the team to look at though, about revising or changing. So once the LSC sees it, my hope is that it's in kind of its, hopefully, somewhat final form, unless LSC has major updates or changes. My hope would be that it's almost like that final draft.
Okay. Okay.
That doesn't give us a ton of time, but you know.
Well, we've had plenty of time to sit with it, so I have like a gazillion and comments. Now, as far as timing, where does that put us as far as moving into decisions about curriculum and some of the discussions that we need? Well, I know when you and I met a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the reading piece.
Yep.
and talking about,
Just wrote that on the budget.
what, I'm sorry?
I just wrote that on my budget form today, like keeping a list of budget items.
Yeah, just talking about a possible different approach, and you mentioned talking to the staff to get feedback from them on what they're using to supplement and what they think may work better. And I know we've had a parent who is a wealth of information on resources for that. And so just wanting to know the timing for those kind of decisions to make sure that we give you and the staff the support to gather information so that we're able to make informed decisions.
Yeah. So usually, I mean, I think the CIWP is the starting point, and thinking strategically about, like, before you purchase a curriculum, what comes before that. So maybe, investing in a curriculum is year 2, and year 1 is identifying 3 that we're going to research and vet. And then year 2 would be make your decision and purchase. I'm giving like a random sample here, but the CIWP kind of helps guide that timeline. So the idea being, if we have a solid CIWP when we look at our budget here, hopefully in May or sometime soon, that we would be able to say, with this budget, it makes sense to fund X, Y, and Z, but then in year 2 of this, well, I keep calling it year 2 of the CIWP because I feel like this year is really kind of the first. But we would then be able to say, but next year we would have to fund X. So having a solid CIWP is key. And then on top of that, the feedback from staff, I think, will be important as it relates to the CIWP and the curriculum elements. However, I also, and without going into too much specifics, we will have some funds from this year's budget, and I will talk more about this in May, that will become available to us to potentially do some things with this year's budget to help set us up before next year's budget. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So in the CIWP actions, since what I'm hearing is a pretty long lead time for curriculum.
Yeah, curriculum, I would not say something to just jump into. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like that takes a lot of lead time and research. And so
I can give an example with math. When we purchased this math curriculum, My Math, we spent a whole year. We found 3 different math programs that we were interested in. We brought in samples at various grade levels from each of the math programs. We had teachers give feedback from a gen ed perspective. We had DL teachers give feedback from the DL perspective. And then we had parents give feedback from a parent perspective. And then after the entirety of that year, we picked one of the 3. Now, do I think we're all totally thrilled with the one we have? Probably not. But I would say that the process we went through to get it was inclusive of everyone's learning styles, opinions, thoughts. And so to do it well, I do think that it takes about a year, or maybe half if you push it, but to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to interact with whatever you're exploring, I think is important, because everyone's going to have a different vantage point.
Sure. Okay. I would challenge the CIWP team to really think through, given the information that you just shared, and I mean, it sounds absolutely completely justified. I think as a CIWP team, we need to think through how we continually engage staff and parents on stop gaps and potential small group opportunities and improvements along the way, so that we can undergird any things that kind of fell through the cracks, because I'm sure there is no perfect one-size-fits-all curriculum.
Yeah. So you know what, Tina, you bring up a good point, and I'll use it as an example. Literacy instruction and in our younger grades, phonics. So we were given, we kind of knew this feedback, and it didn't take developing a whole new curriculum. We were able to send some teachers to Wilson training, which is a very specific phonics approach and way of teaching. So as kind of like you're saying, like a stopgap or something we noticed, we were able to send people to kind of fill that role in the meantime. And so that wasn't like a whole curriculum redesign. That was just based on feedback, based on need. And we were able to fulfill that need in that way. So much to your point, agreed.
Okay, yeah, I would love to see that thought and that proactive nature baked into the CIWP. That would be fantastic. And so as we move to that May timeline for getting the CIWP in a pretty final state, just wondering if at the time you present it, that we can be provided with almost like a critical priority list. Like this is what and where we need to be first, be it something that's, code threat level orange, or if it's something that is important from a foundational aspect.
Okay. So within the document, coding it that way, or kind of like an attachment to the CIWP?
I think it needs to be concrete and deliberate. So whatever whatever format makes it that,
okay,
I'm fine with. But I think we're taking on a lot, and there's a lot to do, and I think corralling it so that we can look at it from a priority and critical perspective.
Yep.
And better allocate resources where they need to be, not only on the council, but, parent volunteers, wherever. I think if we have that information as when we review the CIWP, that we can move strategically.
Got it. I'm writing it down.
Okay. And I think also, Mira, not only criticality, but also chronology.
Mm-hmm.
With the way the CIWP is set up, with all the action items, of course, you have, things that are done in summer 2020, things that go out to 2022. And I think getting our heads around chronology will help digest the CIWP as well, so we could see how we move through the different pieces. Do you see what I'm saying there?
More like a layout of, like a timeline layout, sort of.
Yeah, so we can see what kind of progress we should be making, because ultimately with this CIWP standing item in the agenda, we can look back in an organized fashion and take account of where we've been, what's working, what are opportunities for improvement, as it is a living document, so we can continually support you guys in any way we can.
Yep, makes sense.
I just had just a couple questions. Great process. Can you just talk us through, Mira? There are obviously 4 goals you've identified. Initially was 5, but you condensed the equity into all 4. Can you tell the origin story about how Agassiz came to the identification of those 4 goals, or the process for that? Because that's something that the school identifies, correct?
That's on the team identifies and different data points. Student data, parent feedback, surveys. I mean, it's kind of, and Nick, you can help me out here because you've been on the committee for a long time, but it's really looking at a variety of data points to identify kind of what are the problems of practice. And then once you identify the problem of practice, doing a deeper dive to identify what is the root cause of that, so that we can improve that problem, so to say, or come up with a solution. So it really is, it is a combination of parents, staff, and community who move up that community, and then work together Am I giving feedback to everyone else or just myself? The heck? So it really is it's a lengthy process, but so basically the short version would be the kind of MTSS interventions and support was around supporting not only our struggling students, but our academically excelling students, as well as differentiating supports for students who are maybe very athletic or very into the arts. The social emotional one was really looking at students not just from an academic standpoint, but what do we do to support their social emotional learning? How do we make sure they're getting supports that they need, opportunities to interact, those pieces. Curriculum is a lot around IB, a lot around the equity piece. We were talking about cultural relevance and looking at materials that we're using and how to update those. 1, 2, 3. And then student voice and choice was really around this student voice committee idea and how do we engage students and develop their agency to be contributing members of the school and help with kind of school issues and be more involved at a school level. But then how do we transfer that through, an IB community project? What does that look like? How can we expand what's back?
And I'm sorry, my background is so dark. I can't really see. I'll flick some lights on. In your experience, and I'll refer this out to those who are on the team as well, have those priority areas, have they changed over time?
They have not. Have they changed over time? I would say some of the specifics have changed over time. I think pretty consistently. Student voice, I would say, is the one that we've most recently added in. And that's been a much bigger focus for us, certainly as we entered into the equity conversations, but also with the IB wall-to-wall and just wanting to give them more of a higher level of involvement. The interventions and supports and SEL components have been pretty consistent in our CIWPs, maybe taking on variations here or there, but definitely been identified in some way, shape, or form for a number of years.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Quick question about CAWP. Are things like academic growth and achievement considered like table stakes, and then the CAWP is like sort of bigger picture items? Is that generally the idea?
Wait, say it again. I'm sorry.
Like things like academic growth, academic achievement, is that like not on a CAWP because it's like the everyday?
No, it is, but it's kind of like, that's kind of the data that helps drive the creation of the action items, but the data itself, like the numbers, is more like the goal setting part of the CAWP. And that's not embedded within the actual writing of the action items. So when we look at the CAWP, the difference right now is that we don't have current student achievement data from testing. So usually you have those numbers and then you're thinking about a numeric goal in addition to the strategies and the action items. We just don't have that data point right now.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions?
Okay. Thank you for that, Mira.
No problem.
The next item on the agenda is a strategic plan, which was provided.
So I circulated that, and I'm going to be honest, like I circulated one that was inclusive of kind of the major components from the very last approved strategic plan, but also, I mean, I'm sure you could see like I added in kind of current information around what our statistics are for diversity, what our current fundraising figures are, the fact that we're wall-to-wall IB school. Like, so I added some pieces to what we had existing prior. And then I highlighted some pieces that I think we need to fill, broaden out still. Some of those we've talked about tonight, like what are our priorities in technology? And I think we need feedback in order to list those. So those pieces I highlighted in yellow. But this was me taking a stab at getting us started at adapting an old version and kind of getting us to a point where we could have a conversation to move forward, but I think this is going to be a hard one to do. So what we've done in the past, I'll just go back, is I believe it was me, Nick, and one other LSC member kind of created a draft. We circulated it, everyone gave feedback, and then we brought a final draft to LSC to kind of review and look at, because we were finding to actually do the writing in the LSC meeting was next to impossible. So this was my attempt at providing at least a baseline, and then I don't know how we want to move forward from there. Happy to make edits if people want to just give me ideas, but I don't know if we want like a smaller group looking at this.
Now, is this something that it just kind of seems like maybe the CIWP should be a bit more final before we try to finalize the strategic plan?
It definitely should align to the CIWP. That is 1000% correct. Yes.
Okay. And I mean, I like the idea of a smaller group working on it rather than trying to have a working meeting.
So I'm happy to meet with a couple people who want to work on it. I agree. It should tie directly to the CIWP because it should guide our budget conversations. So I'm happy to work with, anyone who really wants to. They can provide me feedback on what I sent out, or we can just meet and start kind of as a group. I agree. It's incredibly hard to do as a large group. So don't all volunteer at once.
Is Patty on here?
I'd be interested.
Sorry, who was that? Kate? Okay.
Is Patty on the?
I am, and I was going to ask that when it was my turn to speak. If I think Sarah, it's when yours is on, that's when we're getting the feedback. There, that's better. Yeah, I would love for us to have a chance to provide feedback on that, or even see it, because I think there's some stuff on there, I assume, relating to Friends Up.
Right.
We often reference the strategic plan. It's on our website. We reference it in a lot of what we're doing, and I haven't seen it, whatever the working document is looking like. So if it's possible that one person that's not on the LSC can be on it, that it affects our organization, I would love to be part of that as well.
Unless anyone has objection, that's what I would suggest. So I think we have Mira, Nick, Patty, and Kate.
Nick was on it before. I don't know if he wants to do it again.
I don't necessarily need to be on it again. What I was going to suggest, because I think, yes, getting feedback from FOA is essential. Also, because technology has always been in it in some point, making sure Mr. Laughlin is involved in some way, just because with all the technology, like, I think he knows the most where we're at with, like off the top of my head, I would say smart boards, we probably don't need anymore. That could go away, but I might be wrong,
I actually think people want the smart boards and want updates. So
we'll see.
We need a staff survey too, but yes, these are the conversations we need to have for sure.
And then I see IB is now a priority on there, which I think is a great idea. So then obviously including either, Michelle or Frida in some way.
Yeah, so
the IB needs.
We had the arts program outlined, but not IB, so I added IB.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I mean, I can certainly start Kate and Patty, and then I could ask a staff member or two to join us if everyone's okay with us just kind of moving forward with that.
Yeah, I think it would be great if you all could get together and hammer out something to provide to the rest of us, and we can give loose feedback on that. And is this something that we vote on to approve?
We did in the past. It's kind of something we've just developed. It's not really like a legal document. So, we used to have things in there about like you had to have 2/3 approval to change it. And there was very specific language, but it's not really a legal document. So
okay, yeah, I noticed that. And
it is, but I do know it is one of our duties is to revisit, like have a form of a strategic plan. I don't think there's an official CPS like way to do it as far as I know. And if Jose is still here, he can jump in if that's incorrect. But it is, a strategic plan is something we need to have and review. I believe it's at least once a year, if not every 6 months, but let's go with once a year for now, just so we can try to get there. Yeah. So, but yeah, let's check if it's something we have to vote on, or if it's like the team comes back, presents it to us just to let us know what it is. Let's double check that.
That being said, perhaps we target the June meeting for having it finalized. And I'll follow up with LSC OR to see what our duties are specifically. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have something formalized and voted on, as long as we have the time to do it and review it annually.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the strategic plan? Any other discussion? Okay, we will move on to the updated bylaws discussion. Sarah, did you want to run point on this?
Sure. I'm sorry I'm giving folks feedback. With that, the bylaws discussion, we did send the bylaws over to CPS Legal, and they did give us feedback, and that was shared by Mira, the edits that were made. Primary edit, if I can just kind of quickly update folks on, kind of where the focus of the edits were from legal's perspective. In the beginning part of the bylaws, when we talk about just how we can engage folks in virtual spaces, we're, once again, we're limited to what we can do within, what's outlined in OMA. So legal did make sure that that line was very clear and specific to OMA there. In addition to that, I know that we initially had some language in there around how we could potentially activate our search engine arms around supporting kind of the chat and things like that. But that was nixed, that language specifically. But we do know we have that support system there if and when needed. And further down towards the end of the document, in terms of the legal's review of the meeting minutes, just referencing also and adding additional language around how we can be as a, excuse me, let me quickly pull it up so I won't misquote it. On the latter part of the section, just in terms of, once again, going back to how we're ensuring that we are being cognizant of how we're engaging folks in that virtual space and what is the requirement around attendance as members. So, right now OMA says that we can participate virtually, but we do need to be mindful of those OMA stipulations. So those are kind of the gist that the highlight, I should say, of the edits from legal. Other than that, our bylaws have been vetted by us as a board, and it has also been vetted by CPS Legal as well. And that's where we stand. So looks like it's in good order.
As I read through the feedback from Kashasha in CPS Legal, I had just a couple follow-up questions, and I'm actually not sure as a point of process if we have questions on her feedback, do we follow up with her? I mean, they're minor questions. I wouldn't think that we'd need to get together and vote again on the bylaws. I think maybe just getting some clarification from her on a couple things. I
think as a point of process, you have to vote now that they've been changed from what you voted on.
Oh, okay.
You
Since
know, because you
that,
voted on the other, like the draft, and now there's changes. So I think they have to be presented again with the edits or revisions and then voted on as a new document. Because the ones that were voted on have not been enforced, so to say, because you were waiting on the feedback. So I think you do have to technically revote. That's, maybe Jose knows that. I don't, Jose, do you know that answer?
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Jose Ortiz, LSC Relations. Congratulations on the name change. I know you worked really hard over the last, 6, 7, 8 months. So congratulations on that. Regarding your question, so I believe what happened is that the bylaws were, they were emailed to me. I forwarded to the law department. And then I did see the response from Kishasha. So, the best practice will be for the council to look at and actually you can do it today, look at the actual recommendations. And what you will need to do is vote on the bylaws, right? Make it official again. Send it back to legal or to me, and I can forward it to legal, and then just make sure that everything's okay. And then once that's done, then they become official. But yeah, that will be something you can discuss today. I mean, you can discuss bylaws at any meeting really, as long as it's on the meeting agenda.
thank you, Jose. So, I had a couple of questions as far as clarification. I think when we talk about the virtual attendance space, before this language is finalized, I think there needs to be delineation between whether we're talking about members attending virtually or if we're talking about still offering our meetings to a virtual audience. Let's see, for example, for page 5, where she added, where it talks, her edit talks about it as permissible as outlined by the Open Meeting Act under a declared public health crisis, where we're talking about a quorum of 7 members must be present. So my question is, if there's a member who has to attend virtually, does that member's attendance count towards quorum? I don't know what OMA says about that.
Is this, Tina, so are you referring to this? So this will be when we go back to in person. Let's say we go back to in person. So here's what I know. I think that right now, because this is a state law, right? We are, functioning virtually, but once we return back into normal, my guess is that we're gonna do things the way we've done it in the past. So you could actually the way OMA what OMA states is that the council can actually vote for someone to be present virtually if it's on the agenda and the council votes to include that person virtually, and it's not specific into how many folks, but what it's specific is that you need to have at least 7 members present to make quorum, and then you can add 1 or 2 people to be present virtually, in an in-person setting, of course. Does that make sense?
So that virtual person does not count towards quorum?
Does not count quorum. Yeah, and I hear an echo.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So the virtual person
Did you hear me?
does not count towards quorum.
Yeah. Can I ask a quick question?
No, yeah, go ahead.
So one of the points of clarification I just want to get to before we talk about this a lot more is this, it kind of sounds like it is what it is by state law, and we're not really going to have much there's nothing we could put in our bylaws that would change what the state law decides, that we are functioning under the public health crisis exception. But once that is lifted, we are back and bound to the rules. And so even though we might not like it, or we would like it to be changed, it would have to happen at the state level, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Absolutely. And then to answer Tina's question, no, that person who's connecting virtually doesn't count towards quorum. You still need to have 7 members physically present in the meeting, and then you can add people to join you in the meeting, in a virtual platform. But yeah, and I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, we don't know when are we going to go back in person. I don't anticipate this to be anything new, to be honest with you, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see how things go.
Yeah.
Jose, can you provide some clarity in terms of that policy stipulation? Because in looking at the statute and the bylaw that Kashasha asked us to put back in, it says, provided a quorum is physically present as authorized under the statute, an LSC member may attend a meeting by video or audio conference if he or she is prevented from physically attending because of, and they give, different caveats, right? Personal illness or disability, personal employment purposes, family emergency, and there's but it doesn't necessarily say that person's virtual presence doesn't count to quorum. It doesn't say that language in there at all. So what you're adding in is some additional information that I would be really interested in kind of knowing, like where can we reference that? And I think we should think about that in the bylaws.
I just want to throw in my previous LSC experience, we did have it that the person who had to call in, and this was even before the fancy world of these Google Meets and video, you could call in your vote. Like you could be put on speakerphone and that counted towards quorum. And that's how we operated for the 5 years that I served. And that was
we've
in our
also had
bylaws.
we've had it before where you could call in, but you were not able to vote. So I guess I don't.
No, actually, Principal Weber, as long as it's on the agenda and the council votes, that person has they can actually vote. It doesn't count towards quorum. As an example, if you have 6 members, right, physically present, and the 7th person will be the person needed for quorum, that wouldn't count. You will still need to have 7 members present, right, and then add Jose Ortiz as the 8th person to part of the meeting. So that's kind of like what that's kind of I think that's the question you're asking. If I'm correct, you're right.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I kind of feel like this is probably an argument, a conversation that probably is not as a moot point because, sorry, just in the healthcare world, like we are planning to be functioning incredibly different forever. And like that we're never going to go back to forcing 50 people to sit in a room in a conference together and like for the foreseeable future. And I have a feeling once we finally lift the thing, there will be changes made, but it sounds like we don't have much power anyway. So I guess, Sarah, if you could try to get clarification on like the written part of that, that would be important. But beyond that, we're kind of stuck with whatever gets decided.
Well, absolutely, Kate. And I do think that, in this particular section, as it pertains to the LSC membership, it really pertains to LSC membership only. I mean, I'm going back up to, other edits she made just around how we can, facilitate meetings for the, for families if they want to connect virtually in those spaces as well, too. I don't see where she struck,
Could I make?
Well, she did strike that, yeah. So we'll follow up with that. She did strike that.
Yeah. Could I just make a suggestion based on timing? It seems like there are questions for Kashasha from specifically the bylaw committee. So I think that it probably makes the most sense, and just to honor everyone's time and space, if the committee maybe wants to get together and draft an email or create some questions for her to kind of further explain. But I don't know that, we're certainly not going to get any answers tonight. So I think that maybe kind of the committee and the intention of the committee is to take this back, I guess, to her if there's still further questions.
Absolutely. We will do that. Thanks.
And I'll Sarah, I'll send you my specific questions as far as what I had as far as that follow up. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sarah. I just think to move forward.
And so can we target the May meeting for maybe a final version to vote on? I mean, assuming that these are easy clarifications and that it will be, you know, based on rigid law. But if we could target the May meeting for voting on a final, that would be great. And it's understandable if CPS legal is not available to provide the feedback in that time period. But if we could target that, that would be great.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next item, which is fundraising updates and approvals. So there were a couple of items forwarded to the council that I wanted to bring for discussion because there's a lot to consider in some areas that we haven't really been in before. And so really, I just wanted to facilitate the discussion so that we could move forward collectively and most productively. I'd like to do them separately. The first one I'd like to discuss is for the spirit wear. And we talked about a little bit earlier, I can't remember who mentioned I think maybe it was Kate, mentioned the potential opportunity for repurposing some of the old spirit wear opportunities for that. So Patty, would you like to summarize what you have here?
I sent the proposal to you and Mira just about kind of getting the approval to move forward on spirit wear, because I had a meeting with Mira and Jim a couple weeks back. It was just about a bunch of things, but that conversation happened regarding fundraising for spirit wear, and perhaps we misunderstood, but I thought that the conversation was stating that FOB would be handling that as a fundraiser. And I thought it was a good idea just because I know, as Mira pointed out, historically spirit wear was handled by internally and by the office, but you know, these are different times now, and FOB hasn't been able to do all of our fundraisers. We didn't get to do our gala this year, and we didn't get to do it last year. We haven't gotten to do the online auction. And so, you know, we have no other fundraisers planned for this year aside from the last two dining nights coming up. And so, you know, I made the suggestion that we could work closely with Principal Weber. It says it on the form, but you know, get the spirit wear kind of up and going, and maybe potentially have some opportunity for some iron-ons, like big bulldogs that can cover existing spirit wear for those that are not able to get rid of their existing spirit wear. And actually that was Mira's idea, which I thought was great. I had not looked into it yet because I just wanted to get approval first from the council before moving forward. You know, Mira responded that she didn't really want this to come up tonight at LSC because historically this is something that was handled internally. So I'm grateful, Tina, that you're giving me the opportunity to at least address it with the council and we can have a conversation about it. I'm not really sure why it needs to be handled internally. I did check in with other friends of organizations, and it turns out that most of the friends of organizations do traditionally handle spirit wear. So I don't think it's that much out of our wheelhouse.
Thank you, Patty. Patty and Tina, can I ask a quick question before we get into more discussion about this? I guess I'm a little confused because I thought our process was, and I think like when I got the fundraisers forwarded from Patty to Tina and not coming from Mira, I thought that was a little strange because I thought, as far as I understand, a couple of years ago, we streamlined the process because all fundraisers by CPS policy, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Jose or Mira, have to be approved by the principal. So I know we had streamlined it so that it was less confusing, where any fundraiser went to Mira. Once Mira approves it, she presents it to the board. That way we're not wasting time discussing things that might never happen. So I just assumed these were approved by Mira, but I'm hearing from Patty, it sounds like maybe this one isn't. So I'm just trying to figure out, did we not follow the process then?
No, well, to answer all your questions, yeah, we did streamline that process a while ago, or a year or so ago, whatever. However, with this fundraiser, I felt like it merited discussion. I did not feel like doing what we always have done is a reason to not review it as a council. And so as a matter of process, I don't think discussing it is breaking any bylaws. And also, you know, I want to have the opportunity for open discussion, to hear from Mira as well, as far as what, you know, the concern with maybe keeping it internal, or wanting to do it. And so we can have that discussion out in the open, because it is a very different circumstance now with having not been able to raise money like we have in the past for the school. And so really just fostering transparency and open discussion on it. And I want to respect Mira's wishes, as far as, you know, I didn't want to expect her to forward it knowing that she had reservations about it. So that's why it came from me. That's what.
Mira, do you want to share your feedback on the proposal? Sounds like you had some thoughts.
Yeah, we're historically, yes, Spiritware has gone through the school, and it has been managed through internal accounts. And that way, as a school, we have the Spiritware funds, not always a large amount of money in internal accounts. If and always those funds have been used for student incentives, that we've been able to use those funds from our internal accounts to support things like awards, graduation, student incentives, things of that nature. We are nowhere near ready to purchase new Spiritware. I certainly did make the suggestion of iron-on patches. However, I also have great concern that there are people racing to start developing things that we are not ready to develop, and to start marketing and promoting. And so keeping this at an internal level for right now, I feel is most manageable and makes the most sense until we have everything in order and in place, and we can consider what it would look like at that point. But also those Spiritware funds have been used have been very important at a school level to do student incentives and things of that nature.
Can we wait till we have the design, the new school design we talked about, and then revisit this?
But isn't that making a lot of work for Friends of, if we don't think that they have, I don't know how to say it. I didn't know this was coming, so I'm like, so if they don't have the right to take over, why would they do all of the legwork if they're not going to be able to actually make it happen?
There's no legwork to be done at this point. I think that's kind of what we're discussing. There's no legwork to be done right now. We're not at a point where we can move forward.
Can we hear?
But I think that we can move forward without the actual design, but we know that Spiritware is coming. We know that there's a need for it. So there is legwork to be done. The final decision of what goes on that actual Spiritware can come later on. But the actual legwork of making a plan, things will change. I didn't realize that, to be honest, I didn't realize the school did it, because I've always seen it as, it seemed to be that Friends of was the one selling it when we were in the hallway. So I'm coming from a thing I know I bought mine from a Friends of person, I thought. But anyway, I think that it is something to start, so that when we're ready and we can really roll with it.
And maybe there merits conversation, hearing your concern, Mira. Maybe part of the working closely together is, one, you know, what that money is going to be used for. You know,
Part of any fundraising proposal.
I'm sorry?
That's part of any fundraising proposal. You have to stipulate where the funds are going. So when we've approved Spiritware in the past, on our fundraising proposal to the LSC, Spiritware has always been dedicated to student incentives and awards.
Okay.
I mean, can I say one thing?
But in the past, like our fundraising proposals, sorry, Kate, I actually don't have that on our fundraising proposals that we've had to fill out in the past where things were going, because we don't have a say in that FOB. You guys decide that. So whenever we've submitted any proposals for anything, we traditionally have not actually put where those funds were going to go because we didn't know where you guys were going to approve them to go. So for example, if this was something you were going to approve and you stated that you wanted that to go for student incentives or, you know, staff PD or whatever LSC was going to decide on, then FOB would say, okay, that's where that's going. And we would know exactly where that's going. I mean, the money, it's coming in and it would go into an account that's going to whatever is needed based on what LSC decides. So I'm just not sure what the hesitancy is, to the point of not even wanting to bring it up at the meeting. That's the part that was a bit confusing. So, you know, I'm not, if you don't want us to do it and it's for whatever reason that I'm still not completely understanding, then that, so be it. I'm not going to fight for it. We were willing to do it and we were willing to take the time and do it, but it's.
Can we hear your ideas?
Can I just say one thing, just kind of from like a pragmatic perspective? I feel like all of this is funds that are raised for the school. It's not like FOB will then use those funds to something else that we don't want them directed to. In the end, isn't it all the school's money? So I kind of, it would be one thing if FOB had more autonomous control of how it spends its funds, but it's so directed by the LSC and the strategic plan. I understand, particularly with the new logo, the new name, how it's marketed, how we're presenting it. I get the school wanting to have more control over Spiritware than your average rollout because it is so new and so different, and we all really need to all be on the same page. So something inappropriate, something isn't, I don't know, communicated in a way that we're not happy with. But I feel like there would be a way to like make sure that the logos are all designed on the school end, that there's like a lot of the stuff that the school, that the principal and the school have control over that and how it's marketed. But at the moment, I feel like there's probably more capacity with the office being so busy with all of the craziness that COVID brings. It seems like if there's a lot of people on FOB that are not planning the auction or the gala, that there's capacity in terms of time to be a little bit more inventive and kind of think about different types of Spiritware that maybe we haven't looked at in the past. And I think there's going to be a huge desire for Spiritware that we probably haven't seen this level of like interest in the past. And so I just kind of feel like there's some kind of in between that we could get to, since all of the funds in the end up going to the school. The other thing I just wanted to say, and I'll stop talking, if there were some parents that would want to specifically fundraise to make sure that every kid in the school gets a t-shirt on day one of whatever, I think that would be awesome. And I know that's not something we can necessarily say we can do with existing funds, but if parents wanted to give specifically to make sure every kid leaves June whatever with their new welcome to Tubman, I think that would be a really great thing. And I think that I could probably find some parents that would be interested in making sure that everyone gets one. But I think in the end, like seeing the strategic plan, I remember getting the strategic plan when I was on FOB and saying, okay, we're supposed to raise $150,000 this year. Okay, how the heck are we going to do that? I think we're handing FOB, we expect you to raise $110,000 in a very, isn't that what it says?
That wasn't highlighted. It was an old figure that we needed to.
Oh, sorry, I thought that's what it was changed to, because I was like, wow, that seems like a lot. I just feel like we are struggling right now, and if we had capacity for someone to come up with new and inventive tons of swag that is approved by the school and marketed in a way from the school that everyone's comfortable with, I think we probably could make it a great fundraiser and raise more money for the school, but I think we could probably find some common ground.
I also just want to throw out that we are still so limited on our fundraising. And I know that that was something that happened like a year ago. They asked, CPS was like, oh, we're only going to all of these other schools. I'm on everybody's Facebook page, people. I watch what everybody's doing. So I know they're all doing their galas. They're doing them remotely, but they're Belding's still doing beers and Belding, and everybody seems to still be doing all of these things. And they're doing McDonald's. We just did McDonald's. There's Culver's nights. There's a lot of fundraising going on all over this city. So I'm just curious why we're still sticking to limiting our potential. And Kate, I read that the whatever thing the same way. I'm like, we're still asking them for 110. That's a lot when we're only saying you can do here's a McDonald's and a Lou Malnati's night. So I'm just on board for more
clarify, the highlighted yellow part was a discussion point that we need to have. That was a that was left from the old document and highlighted yellow because I didn't want to come up with some random figure on my own.
I'll just offer that there's, as we talk about process and protocols and things like that, in addition to thinking about what are those current processes that we have, this is an opportunity to kind of think about how our engagement practices is there an opportunity to revisit that, and then also offer that there is quite a lot of language in the CPS LSC manual about fundraising that I think that could be another guide tool as well too.
Sarah, this is Jose. I just wanted to add something really quick because this is an interesting conversation. I always when I ask this type of questions, I always answer the LSCs, and the one thing I always tell them is that just make sure you're consistent, right? Because the only reason I think that it's important to have a consistency in the process is because, in most schools, you're going to have friends of, doing fundraisers for school, but sometimes you may have, non-friends of other organizations that also want to raise money for the schools, right? So you want to make sure that everybody follows the same process. That way it doesn't look like the school, the LSC, or the principal is given an advantage to one particular organization over the other. So just to answer Nikki's questions earlier, best practice is for the organization to fill out a fundraising proposal, make sure it goes to the principal. In your case, you're an ISP school, so you don't need chief approval. Principal approves the proposal, goes to the LSC for final approval, and then that's it. But I would if there are questions about the process, definitely you should visit them. But my recommendation is stay consistent. That way everybody, all the organizations in the community know what they need to do in order for a fundraiser to be approved by the LSC.
Sorry, I don't mean to be devil's advocate, Jose, but it seems like that system of, we don't have other organizations right now that are doing it, but having it that the principal decides which ones get brought to the LSC seems to actually make it that there's not a level playing field for different groups that would want to present if the principal picks them all. I actually don't think that's an issue with this one, but it just, from a subgroup standpoint, that doesn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, right now you may not have a lot of organizations, but my hope is that one day soon we're gonna be back in person, and obviously what I for this particular case is an external organization. It needs the LSC's approval. For any other fundraiser, actually the majority of them needs LSC approval, but for some of the fundraisers that are in school, like local inside school fundraisers, the chief of the network and the principal approve them. But I know what you're saying. I think it's important to have a conversation among the LSC chair, the principal, and then present it for the LSC for discussion and final approval.
And I'm just going to go back to my email, which specifically stated I'm not going to bring it to the LSC right now. There are further details that need to be worked out. I'm just going to go back to the fact that my specific intention was that there were details needing to be filled out and are needing to be figured out, and we didn't have those figured out. So
And what details would you say those are besides, of course,
A lot
filling
of
the
things.
logo?
There's a lot of things involved with Spiritware. There's the platform, there's the vendor, there's online versus in person, there's Marilyn's role as the clerk, there's logos, there's branding. There's a lot that goes into looking into a Spiritware program, and my response specifically said I wasn't bringing it forward right now. There's more details that need to be worked out.
So with all those details, it sounds like legwork that could take place while the fundraiser is approved. That's not the case.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is
okay, and that's my point. I got your email, but my point is, it sounds like with your, I mean, as the fundraiser says, working closely with you, that figuring out those details and that legwork can go on so that we can get moving. I mean, I think someone brought up the possibility of, a bulldog. Our mascot's not changing, so maybe that's low hanging fruit. As the branding and other things are figured out, and so that was my intent. My intent was not to veto you at all. My intent was hoping that that we can have a conversation about what needs to be done. So maybe we can start doing that within this proposal, still with all that guidance, still with all that input, still figuring out all those details, but to get moving and to possibly raise some money more quickly than if we wait until we have all that figured out and then, try to do something by the end of the year.
I think the proposal that I sent was typical to what I've always sent, Mira. And in the proposal, I was very clear in saying there hasn't been a new logo or pricing hasn't even been established, that a conversation we'd be working closely with you on this. So I don't have any interest in doing stuff around you. Obviously, if you are not in support of something, then it's not really going to go well for anyone else. So that wasn't my intent. I've been doing it, and Mr. Ortiz, thank you for that information, but I have, followed this to the letter of the law from the beginning of, serving as president on FOB for the last 2 years. I have followed the protocol of sending it to the principal always. And so then there was just a conversation. So Principal Weber did respond, and she just basically said, there was a little bit of confusion too, maybe on mine and Jim's part too, because then we had a meeting with Principal Weber about this, and I thought she was stating that she wanted us to do this fundraiser. We discussed it as a fundraiser, so it seemed to me that was the way that conversation was. So when I sent that to her, it was with the full intention of following up with what we had already discussed. But basically, the response was historically Spiritware, had been handled internally, and therefore at this time I will not be presenting the proposal to the LSC. So Tina was on that email and suggested that there is a further conversation about it. And I didn't see a response from Principal Weber about that. So I don't know if you didn't want us to do that tonight. I didn't see a response. So unless you guys, emailed back to each other, I wasn't included on that. So I wasn't aware of it. So I came prepared to discuss it if the council still wants to do so. If, you want to wait and maybe see, when we have logos and other ideas in mind, that's fine too. I'm just saying that FOB suffered a lot this year in terms of what we were able to provide for the school. And, I know it's not all on mine or the board's, shoulders, but we just had our pledge drive, and normally that raises upwards of $60,000, and we raised $21,000. So that's a huge loss. And I'm just looking for other ways, creative ways to help our school. That's all I'm doing. Help fund things for our school. I'm responding to the staff's needs from the Bulldogs BOP fundraiser. As Mira pointed out earlier, I'm getting some more emails now for stuff they need for fourth quarter, and I'm thrilled that we're able to use the funds that we raised from that fundraiser, and so far we're still good on those funds. So it was a suggestion to help the school because that's what we do. We fundraise. So this is a fundraiser. Anyway, so you guys can discuss or not, but that's kind of where it was from my perspective.
I just want to throw out, if anybody hasn't seen the Chalkbeat article about the importance of Friends of Money and how it can make a huge difference, especially with the way that Chicago public schools are not equitably funded. And Patty was mentioned about some of the great work that she's done at our school. I can put that, I'll put that link on the Bulldog page, but I'll put it here in the chat too. But parent fundraising, it's saying eases reopening. And I think that the more fundraising that we can do, the better. And the more that we can get things moved. I also used to do merchandising, so I know what it's like to find the right vendors, especially within, you guys have the added problems of CPS. But just all the different possibilities that legwork could be done. And you don't need to have any approval of a name or a logo to at least find out who is going to be your vendor and what are your items, like that kind of stuff. So I'll put that link in the chat.
In the interest of time, Mira, is there any way, shape, or form following this discussion that you are willing to approve this with the understanding that things need to be figured out and that can be part of the legwork?
No, not tonight. I'm certainly more than happy to work out details and have further conversation as I had stated, but I'm not okay approving it tonight, no.
Okay.
Can I ask to do this when you have, like, this is an offline conversation. This wasn't ready to be reviewed by LSC.
Correct.
Can you say that again?
I think this was disrespectful to deviate from the process. This sounds like an offline conversation and wasn't ready for LSC voting.
Well, you're of course more than entitled to interpretation, but as I said earlier, it definitely was not an attempt to be disrespectful. And I explained in my email when I said that I would like for it to be discussed that my intention is to have a discussion in hopes that we could possibly work out maybe what's lacking so that we could move forward. So no disrespect was intended. That's for certain. And I've made that clear to Mira and Patty.
But to echo
Tina, really quickly, I think,
thanks.
I think the objective of this portion of the discussion, as Tina had originally said, was to raise the issue and to talk it through. I think, Mira's made clear where she stands. So I think we've kind of reached a discussion point here. And I don't get the sense that I think discussion is going to be productive kind of moving forward on this. And I would propose that we move on from this agenda item.
Can I just ask one question unrelated, because it wouldn't be spiritware, because spiritware is things we sell. My worry is timeline, and if we would want kids to get like a welcome to Tubman and everyone get one, and it be something that people would give to FOB to make that happen, that would not be even any part of this conversation, because it would be it would be like the walkathon t-shirt. We give every kid one and it comes from FOB funds. Would there be resistance to, once we decide on a logo, start moving forward and getting pricing on something like that, if we could get funders who would pay for just that t-shirt and it would not be part of the spiritware discussion?
So all I'm saying is I'm not prepared to approve it tonight. If we want to revisit this after I've had conversations during the month of April and we revisit this in May, all I'm saying is I am not prepared to approve it tonight.
But it wouldn't be a fundraiser. I'm not talking about a fundraiser. There aren't any funds. It's not spiritware. It would be the idea of this, because if we're trying to get this out by kids leaving in June, the footwork has to be done so that when we approve at the May meeting, that we're submitting t-shirt sizes on all of that by mid-May. I'm just saying the timeline's really short if we would want to do something like that. I just feel like they're two actually very separate discussions with no financial or decision-making or who controls it. I just am trying to get, if people think that that would be a good thing we should be working towards in a positive effort.
I think that we could be throwing that out because we have a lot of public relations going on right now. And I'm sure there's a business who would love to sponsor those free t-shirts, not from fundraising money, not from asking our parents to donate money, but I'm sure there are businesses or politicians who would love to donate those t-shirts and be at that ribbon cutting ceremony. I also did PR and marketing for a long time.
Again, I think we've gotten to a point where, both sides, I think, have had a chance to sort of feel heard on this issue. And I don't get the sense that further discussion is going to move the ball forward. So again, I would recommend that we move on from this discussion point.
So Tina, can I ask, is the second fundraiser, has that one been approved by Mira? If not, I'm going to suggest we just move on, table it. Once it's approved, then it's ready to go, because all these discussions are wonderful, but like honestly, Tina, Patty, Mira, that should have been a separate discussion. Once it's ready to go, then we vote on it. Historically, we would have approved this fundraiser by now. Historically, once it's presented, we know the school has the support behind it. Historically, we have never turned down a fundraising event. We've had a couple of delays, Patty, I'll admit that, back in November and December, but we have never voted on a fundraising event.
My second thing that I presented wasn't a fundraiser, so I don't think that's on here. And it wasn't really something to present specifically anyway, so I don't know that it falls under this category, to be honest.
Okay, one question I had about, I'm sorry. And Nick, to your point, I agree. And I mean, and this is not going to be always the answer. But again, I felt like maybe we could move forward if, we came together and talked about it. So that's why I brought it this time. Now the second thing, one question I had, Patty, is this posted anywhere?
The flyer that you're referencing about the PEBT funds?
Right.
Yeah, it's posted on social media, but I don't necessarily know at this point that it's relevant in this meeting.
Okay, it's posted on the the Parent Bulldog.
Yeah, Friends of social media and the Parent Bulldog page.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's connected at all to the school, it does need to be discussed, because the advice from legal was that it was specifically outside of the parameters indicated on the Illinois Department of Human Services website, so it cannot be tied to the school. So if it is out there, it needs to be specifically discussed and stated that it is not school sponsored or connected to our school. So if it is out there without it having been approved, specifically knowing that the law department advised against it, we do need to discuss it, and we do need to make sure that everyone knows the school is not sponsoring something that goes against the guidance of the Illinois Department of Human Services.
You understand that this is on social media already by other principals and other schools, and this was your community of parents reaching out and saying, what should we do if we don't want to use our card, but we'd like to pay it forward in some way?
And they're
so
not,
this was
not,
I'm not asking.
I'm going to come, I'm surprised that this is all happening, because this specific thing is happening with mutual aid all over CPS,
Correct.
all over the schools. They're not saying donate your food stamp card. They're not saying go give it to Patty and she's going to hand it. She's saying if your family doesn't need $400, you use your card and you donate $400. So I don't think there should be anything illegal with that.
So all I'm specifically saying is, as individuals, if you don't need that card, I 100% encourage everyone to be helping others. All I'm saying is, from a legal standpoint, and I know other places are doing it, I can only be concerned about our school and what legally we have been advised. I cannot control others, but I know for our school, after running it through the law department, I don't want our school or any of us held in any way, shape, or form responsible for doing something that goes against the guidance of this agency. I agree that people are in need. I know many people who are doing, donating the funds on their cards and going about that as individual citizens. What I am saying as the leader of this school and the one responsible to make sure that our school isn't promoting anything that goes against the guidance of a state agency is that we cannot sponsor it.
Okay.
We cannot promote it. That is all I am saying. I am not against anyone doing anything to support anybody who doesn't need those funds when we know other people do. I am protecting our school as the entity that we are, and us as the ones responsible for decision making, to make sure we are doing that in accordance with the guidance from our CPS legal department. That is all I am saying.
Kate?
I was just going to say, is it, and Mira, are they rejecting it across the board, or is it specific wording that they object to? Like, I was reading through it, and I just feel like if we specifically said, spend your money, spend the money on the card as directed by the state, and then donate the equivalent to XYZ.
So,
if it was more explicitly stated, would there be an issue?
So she gave us very specific language of what you can do according to the website with the money on the card. I sent the very specific language. She also said you could recommend that they consider directing people to the children's. I have the language. I have everything that could go on it. It's the fact that what was being publicized is not in accordance with the direction given by that department.
Okay. So can we modify the flyer so it fits those rules?
Well, I sent the guidance, so that's why I guess we're having this discussion.
Okay.
And you know,
and it was modified, Kate. Dana did send, Dana writes our blasts, so Dana did modify it with the language that Mira said in her email. We just didn't change the flyer yet, but that was modified in the language for the blast. But then we knew that was potentially going to be a discussion tonight, so we tabled it for now and didn't make any changes at all.
So what were those specific modifications? I did see the site. Thank you, Mira. I did go see it, and it did say if you actually, I have it pulled up. Hang on.
It says here you can click on the site, and it says for those who do not want or need to use the card, the department specifically states card holders have two options. One, not use the card and the benefits will be removed. Two, cardholder can request the benefits be immediately removed from the account. That was going to be included in the Friends of Blast, but the flyer itself has not been and was not changed. And so we're still promoting something on the flyer that is not in accordance with what the department is saying on their site.
And I guess I would argue if you do not want or intend to use. I mean, that's soft language, but I do think we need to, I respect what you're saying as far as making sure that we are free and clear from a legal standpoint. And again, my intention on bringing this anyway is so that we can have this conversation to discuss the modifications that can be made to possibly pay this forward, you know, not and not just, you know, let it go to waste. And so what are the modifications on the flyer, Pat?
The flyer is going to be eliminated entirely. I'm not going to do a flyer anymore from Friends Of, because I'm just going to remove the flyer entirely. So we were waiting to have this discussion in a calm fashion at this meeting before we made any changes to our blast, which we wanted to send out earlier in the week, but knew that this was going to possibly come up. So my suggestion to Dana will be to remove the flyer entirely, and we will simply mention what Mira stated from her information. I didn't understand that it came from legal because nowhere in the email does it say that. She said the guidance from Illinois Department of Human Services Agency recommends, and then it said 1 and 2. So I wasn't aware this was gone through legal, like none of that was shared with me. So now after hearing that, I am fine with removing the flyer entirely and just making the suggestions that are on there, but also to suggest the children's, Children First Fund, which supports Chicago Public Schools, which they did recommend that you could donate to that one. So,
and then Patty, I just put in the link to the Chicago Tribune just put out an article about exactly about this topic and what.
Yeah, I have that article. Yeah, I've read that.
We can encourage everybody. I need my card. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I've read a couple of some of the other principals' posts regarding this, suggesting that.
So if you're listening to this and you really believe that you would love to do this or you want to get that word out, people can do it individually. There's suggestions on how to get the information out individually, and we can still, I can say, hey, if you don't want to use your card, here's the link to Friends Of. They can't do it, and if they want to remove that, but there's a lot of good suggestions on how other schools are getting that money donated to their Friends Of accounts legally.
Yeah, this was just discussed at our last FOB meeting pretty heavily because we had a parent who's working with a bunch of North Side and Northwest Side mutual aid organizations who wanted to bring it to our attention, which I thought was great. Unfortunately, neither Mira or Michelle was able to attend that meeting, but Tina was there and we had a very long conversation, and the entire board was in agreement that, you know, we all really wanted to promote that to our community because we know that there are some members in our community that want to help. So in any case, you can,
Okay, so it sounds
the
like
flyer will be removed and you guys can move on.
okay.
It's not worth.
That's good. And so you have the language that you need for the blast, and it will move forward. The suggestion will be out there. Okay. Let's see. The next item on the agenda are committee updates. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of committee work is hinging on where we land with the CIWP, which we'll be finalizing pretty soon. But I did want to put this out there to those who are heading committees. With the May meeting, I'm asking that for that committee update agenda item that we have information from each committee as far as what the purpose or focus is intended to be, you know, pretty specifically, as well as the proposed structure, whether there will be just LSC members, or, you know, how you will go about engaging the community, be it committee members or just looking for volunteers in the work you do. And then lastly, how to engage parents as far as who the contact will be and what that process will be. So I will ask that action item from committee heads for that. Is there anything else for item 12? Any questions on committees? Okay, then we are at public participation. Let's see, Mac, do you have the agenda in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, if you could read that blurb and prepare to time.
All right. Members of the public are welcome to make comments and ask questions, but must sign in to participate. The public is called upon to speak in the order if they sign in. The public is kindly requested to limit their comments and questions to 3 minutes. Based on the comments or questions, the principal may address some concerns directly and, if necessary, create an action step for the LSC to follow up with the involved parties at a future date. While the LSC will do its best to address any comments or questions, when necessary, more time may be needed to adequately address a particular concern.
Mira,
And I will be timing the 3 minutes.
okay, thank you. How many did we have, Mira?
Just one.
Just one?
Yep.
Okay.
Patty Lenkoff.
I knew it. I don't have that much to say, really. Thank you, guys. Tina, I just wanted to say a special thank you for leading as chair in the way that you do and kind of making FOB feel a part of, part of the committee and kind of working cohesively. I appreciated that you were able to make our meeting, that we didn't have any admin attendance, and it would have been really helpful and useful at that last meeting. So I'm grateful to you for coming, for supporting us, for despite what some comments were made tonight, feeling that there was some disrespect in the way this was handled. I just want to really state clearly on behalf of myself and the board, I don't think it was just disrespectful in any way. I think opening the lines of communication so that there can be a conversation about things is not disrespectful. You didn't do it behind anyone's back. You did it in a way that was on the up and up and with a ton of class. So I just want to thank you for leading in this way. And I want to just thank the council for listening. So thanks.
Thank you, Patty. That was all we had sign up.
Okay. I have a question for Patty. I know you were going to Google the issue that you were getting with signing up for the public participation. I know some people are having it and some are not. Did you find anything by any chance?
Yeah, I did. And I actually asked another parent because she had some ideas too. I think you have to log out of your Google account and like basically sign completely out of everything and then sign back in. And so I don't know, Mira, if you saw, but I was able to get in after. So that did work. So I think if anyone reaches out to you, let them know that the best way to do it is you have to sign out of everything on your Google accounts and then sign back in. And for some reason that works. It clears out like the cache or whatever that's called.
So when you say sign back in, you sign back into your Google account and then
yeah, through Chrome. So like I signed out of my name through Chrome. I was actually going to just try to do it through Cooper's email. And I think that probably would have worked had I done it that way. So for anyone else, if they still struggle, you can tell them to try to sign in through their kids' CPS email. They should be able to do it that way too.
Could we possibly just do like a sign up genius or all of these things that are so easy and don't have glitches and don't cause any problems? Because I feel like lots of people have said that this is not great when it's attached to the Google form. Could we maybe experiment with something else next month to make sure we're not missing people who want to speak?
Actually, I know Mira and I had discussed some things with confidentiality and the reason that it was done a certain way. And I don't know enough about what you're suggesting, Kate, to know whether or not those issues would be, the same with Sign Up Genius, but I will follow up with you to have that discussion.
So I guess my question is, if we were in a physical room, everyone would be writing their name down on a piece of paper and passing it around, and it's public information. I kind of look at it as the same thing. If you're not putting any information besides your name, it doesn't seem different to me or confidentiality wise different than signing it on a paper. But maybe there's something I'm not thinking about.
Yeah, and honestly, I'd have to take a look at what we ask people to write down when they sign up in person. I've never done it. Long story short, I'll take the action item to discuss with Mira and follow up for sure. Okay, speaking of action items and next steps, there was only one old action item that I don't think we discussed. And Nick, that was for you. It was about the OST programs.
OST programs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just how that was communicated to families and as far as opportunities to engage. If you want to revisit next month, that's fine. I don't know if you have that.
I can briefly say, I did connect with all the teachers who are part of the program and just confirmed how they reached out. And it really was, depending on the grade, like I know many teachers mentioned it while they were teaching in their meets, and a lot of emails went out to the students, especially for, I would say like 3rd and up, because they are using it every day. I know for the yoga, I think you had asked particularly about the yoga program for 3rd and up. The teachers told all the classroom teachers who reached out to parents and students. So I know there wasn't one, particular, specific way. And, I would say for this year, like I think we just did the best we can. If we forgot anyone, it was obviously not on purpose. It was a mistake.
Yeah.
And so far, I am just very happy with how many teachers offered to work a program, and then how many students are willing to do another 1 to 2 hours of, because it's all virtual, of screen time, even though it's obviously not academic for the most part. But we are very happy and that we could still offer it this year. We really thought we weren't going to be able to do anything.
So will that be ongoing for the remainder of the school year?
Yes, so the programs continue. Well, some teachers do it for a month, some for 2. I can type up a sheet and bring it for next, or I can give more details for next time if you want.
My intent is purely to make sure that it's offered to everyone. And, I definitely didn't think there was any malice with
no, I didn't take that.
But I think this is an opportunity, since things may be going on to the end of the year, to kind of collect ourselves and do another coordinated reminder, if it's through parent emails, because Lord knows if I depended on Addison to convey to me everything that drops in her inbox, I'm not sure what kind of student she'd be. So I think if we involve parents then and just be more deliberate about it, now that we have the time and some hindsight, that would be a good action item to take.
Yeah, definitely, I'll reach out to the teachers. Yeah.
Could I just want to add one thing, I didn't hear about this with my 3, but also parents of diverse learners, sometimes we don't get information because it's set at, we sent it to the kids' emails. My autistic son doesn't check his emails and I don't always catch everything because I'm taking care of those things. And so also I've heard it before. I know one time with the musical, older kids were like, I don't want to do that, but their parents might have encouraged them. So I think we could use the room parents or just start to think about ways. Well, I understand we want to put the onus on children. Some children are just not capable. They don't have the executive functioning skills, and some might just choose not to tell us. So making sure that parents get that information. And I also think it supports you, because then everybody gets to see, even if they choose not to participate, they get to hear, wow, this is an option at our school. And again, it's what we're selling about ourselves.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Okay, action items. Mira or Sandra, which you guys want to do?
Kate and Patty and I are looking at a strategic plan for June. Bylaws, Sarah, that committee will be meeting to, I guess, either connect with Kashasha or create the new draft. I am finding out where the stranded child protocol is posted or where parents would be able to find and access that. And in terms of CIWP for May, thinking through that critical list of priorities and the CIWP in a timeline format. And that's what I have.
Okay, I would add the committee work for the committee agenda item as far as that, and then also for the strategic plan, please include Mr. Laughlin if he's willing, and FOB if that's Patty or however they decide to do that, but someone from FOB on there.
Oh, yeah, I said Kate and Patty.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay. Let's see. And then I will follow up as far as the public participation sign up and just how we go about making that as seamless as possible. So Mary, you and I can talk about that, options for that. Okay. Bear with me, just making sure there was nothing else. Okay, I do not have anything else. Is there a motion? I'm sorry, next regular meeting is May 5th, 2021. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
And it has been seconded as well by Emily. Any discussion? All in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand.
Yay. I love you all, but good night.
Any opposed? Abstain? And what's the count, please? I imagine unanimous. Okay, thanks for hanging in there, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.